They've got away with too much, and I'm delighted that finally this particular lie has been exposed.
Shooting party, which was quite normal for Harry, and he just thought they'd all get on together, but in fact the opposite.
At home, why is it always so negative? Everything talked about Meghan is so negative.
Because of the hypocrisy. Because at the beginning, she threw herself into it and then slowly came out. We're going to campaign for the environment. She kept on flying around in private jets.
Is Meghan really getting ready to walk away from Harry? That's the big question heating up right now. And Tom Bower has been watching this marriage like a hawk, tracking every move and every shift. Now he's hinting at something serious, something he claims could shake everything people thought they knew. According to him, what he's gathered for his next move might be the most explosive material he's ever put together. And that's saying a lot.
Royal author is sharpening his quill for a new edition of his book set to reveal huge secrets inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's marriage.
Bower confirmed to the Daily Mirror that he already has major new content lined up for a second book, and he didn't hold back when talking about it. He even doubled down on his first release, making it clear he stands by what he wrote back then. When Revenge dropped, people pushed back hard. Some said it felt too harsh, even unrealistic in parts. But now Bower is saying those same critics are starting to rethink things, slowly coming around to his version of events. And here's the twist. He believes that shift in opinion is only going to make people way more curious about what he's uncovered since. According to him, this whole Harry and Meghan situation is unprecedented, his exact word, and he's clearly not backing off that claim. This isn't just some random commentator throwing out wild claims. Tom Bower has spent decades digging deep into the lives of major public figures, writing serious investigative books that get people talking for all the right reasons. He's not known for tossing around dramatic language just to grab attention. So when he steps up and calls this situation unprecedented, that hits differently, and people are starting to notice. He also described what's going on as a battle for survival and a fight for revenge that's getting more intense week by week. That kind of wording paints a picture of something building behind the scenes, something that's not slowing down but actually getting more complicated as time goes on. And to really understand why his words carry weight, you have to look at how he works. Before journalism, he trained as a barrister, which means he approaches everything with a legal mindset, checking facts, verifying sources, and making sure everything holds up under pressure. He's not just writing from a distance either. He was physically at the Invictus Games doing research for his first book, right in the middle of it all.
That this continuous demand for attention. She was continuously putting out her version of events which contradicted the actual facts. And so she became a political person as much as a mother and a wife.
At one point, he was even confronted by supporters of Harry and Meghan, but he didn't back off. He stayed focused and kept gathering information. So when Bower says he has new material, he's presenting it as something carefully built, not just chatter or speculation. Now, here's where things get really interesting. At the exact same time, Bower is stepping forward saying, there's more to uncover than ever. Omid Scobie, who was known as one of Meghan's strongest media allies, is stepping away from covering Harry and Meghan completely. He's moving on to writing fiction, and that shift is raising eyebrows. One voice is pushing forward with more claims, while the other is pulling back entirely, and that contrast is hard to ignore. And right at the center of all this is something Bower has been pointing to for years, a specific pattern in Meghan's behavior that he believes keeps repeating. Once you start connecting those dots, it creates a picture that's tough to shake off. Meghan's personal relationships have been under a microscope for years, and one detail people often point to is her father being completely out of her life. No matter how complicated that situation is, the reality is he isn't part of her world anymore, and that absence keeps getting brought up. Then there's her first husband, Trevor Engelson. Their split happened around the time her role in Suits took off and her career started climbing fast, which has led to plenty of speculation about timing and priorities. Before Harry, there was also a Canadian boyfriend, and that relationship ended right as a new chapter began.
Okay, so she's made some errors and some missteps.
She didn't make errors. When she didn't tell the truth about the birth or the circumstances around Archie, when she tried to deliberately confuse people about the time of the birth.
Critics have claimed the shift looked sudden, especially with Bigger Suyog appearing at the same time. Omid Scobie's role has also drawn attention. He was often seen as a strong supporter, almost like an unofficial spokesperson, writing books that many believed reflected her perspective. But after Endgame struggled and the Sussex brand faced criticism, he stepped away and moved on to writing fiction, which people are definitely talking about. It doesn't stop there either. Former staff, advisors, and people who worked closely with her, both inside and outside the royal system, have shared stories over time about roles ending, tensions rising, and connections fading out. These accounts have come from different directions, which is why they keep resurfacing in discussions. Tom Bower laid out this pattern in Revenge, arguing that Meghan tends to move toward what benefits her and distance herself from what no longer fits. According to his view, once someone's role in her life changes, the relationship can shift or end entirely. Now here's where the conversation gets intense. A growing number of people are asking whether Harry could be reaching that same kind of turning point. That's reportedly one of the key questions Bower's next book is expected to explore, and it's getting attention for a reason. Some observers have pointed to Meghan being less visible during certain public moments involving Harry, especially during times that brought heavy criticism or pressure. That detail has only added more fuel to the ongoing speculation and made people watch even more closely. When things have gotten messy for Harry, court appearances, negative headlines, moments where the public reaction hasn't been kind, people have noticed something. Meghan hasn't always been visible during those times, and that absence has sparked a lot of conversation.
Focus on here is the tension around a couple trying to make their way in the world and whether they can exploit or whether they are exploiting the royal brand to a small or to big profit, and whether there's a...
She hasn't stepped in publicly to steady the narrative or stand beside him in those tougher moments, at least not in ways people expected. And for those who believe they've seen similar patterns in her past relationships, that distance feels familiar and raises even more questions. Tom Bower has gone even further, pointing to what he believes is a deeper issue at the center of the marriage. His take is blunt and direct. He claims there's a fundamental clash in priorities that keeps growing louder. According to Bower, Meghan is focused on building massive success and long-term financial security, aiming for the highest level of celebrity influence. He frames it as a drive toward extreme wealth and status, saying that goal shapes nearly every decision she makes. On the other side, he describes Harry as someone who's never had to navigate money or career pressure in the same way. Raised in a world of stability and privilege, he didn't have to chase opportunities or deal with the kind of setbacks that force people to adapt quickly. Bower contrasts that with Meghan's earlier experiences, saying she worked her way up, faced rejection, and developed a strong determination to secure both recognition and stability.
So he's a very complicated, depressed, unintelligent man who is seeking a role and has got really nobody on whom he could rely, which is in the end where Meghan stepped in, and a needy man met a woman who could help him with his needs.
In his view, that difference created a powerful internal drive that Harry simply doesn't connect with. So what you end up with, according to this perspective, are two people living under the same roof but moving in totally different directions. Meghan is portrayed as chasing a huge global platform and financial empire, while Harry is said to be focused on something far more personal. And here's the part that really stands out. Bower claims Harry is still thinking about repairing his relationship with his family, hoping for some kind of reconciliation and a path back to what he once had. But Bower is extremely clear on this point. He says that kind of reconciliation isn't going to happen. According to his view, tensions remain high, and the damage isn't something that time alone will fix. So that leaves a difficult situation. One person holding on to the idea of rebuilding the past, while the other is focused on building something entirely new and separate. If that assessment is even close to accurate, it highlights just how far apart their priorities may really be. They're not even on the same chapter anymore. That's how far apart this situation is starting to look. And while all of this is supposedly unfolding behind closed doors, the public side of things has been telling its own story loud and clear. A lot of the business ventures haven't landed the way people expected, and it's been very visible. Take the candles, for example. That situation blew up fast. Products arriving without wicks, leaving people holding $60 candles they couldn't even light.
That's what she was out for. We know that she was hunting for someone of wealth, of notoriety in Great Britain, and she landed, the biggest you could land.
Social media ran with it, and the reaction was brutal. Then there was the jam launch, which didn't exactly win people over either. The response was mixed at best, and critics were quick to point out the lack of excitement compared to the buildup. And this pattern keeps showing up. Big announcements come in strong, get attention for a moment, and then quietly fade away without real follow-through. The podcast ended, other projects stalled, and it's created this growing perception of ideas that don't fully stick. What makes this harder to ignore is that it's not just random critics saying it. Tina Brown, a highly respected media figure who actually supported Meghan early on, recently gave a very direct and honest take. She said Meghan's business approach feels rushed, even panicked at times, constantly jumping to the next big thing before the current one has time to grow. That kind of pattern raises serious questions about long-term strategy. Tina Brown even compared it to trying to become an instant Beyoncé or an instant Michelle Obama without putting in the same years of steady, consistent work those figures built their reputations on. And her point was clear. You can't skip that process. What's wild is how closely that lines up with what Tom Bower claimed years ago.
Filming and including in the Netflix series a private text message. Okay, they don't reveal the contents, but clearly a negative text message that William...
Absolutely. What we're really now seeing is that both of them, having posed as the victim for so long, are really the aggressors.
He argued that Meghan tends to resist advice, not because it's wrong, but because she prefers doing things her own way. And now Tina Brown is echoing that same idea. According to her, people who tried to guide or support ended up feeling like it didn't matter because their input wasn't being used. Here's the detail Tom Bower added that really makes people stop and think. He claims Harry has effectively become Meghan's main advisor, and at the same time, Harry is said to rely heavily on her input too. So what does that create? Two people leaning almost entirely on each other, not really taking in outside advice, making big decisions inside a very tight bubble. And the results of that setup are starting to play out in public in a big way, because here's the real pressure point. If the influence that once came with Harry's name and title starts to fade, and there are already signs people are questioning that, what happens next? What does the long-term plan actually look like when those doors don't open as easily anymore? That's the direction Bower seems to be building toward with his next book, raising serious questions about sustainability and strategy. Now shift focus for a second, because this part stands out just as much. Omid Scobie was, for years, one of the most visible and consistent voices supporting Harry and Meghan. He co-wrote Finding Freedom, regularly defended them in interviews, and appeared closely aligned with their perspective.
Where Meghan stepped in, I mean, a needy man met a woman who could help him with his need.
It really looked like he had a strong connection to their inner circle. Then came Endgame, which pulled in a lot of attention, but not all of it was positive. And when it didn't perform the way some expected, things started to shift. Now, instead of continuing that narrative or releasing another book about their journey, he's stepped away from covering them entirely. He's moved into fiction, writing a completely made-up royal story instead. And here's a detail that raised eyebrows. When reports said his new deal was worth 6 figures, he jumped on social media to correct it, saying it was actually 7 figures. That moment caught attention fast because it felt unusual to publicly clarify that kind of detail. But the bigger question isn't the number. It's what this shift represents. One of their most prominent supporters stepping back at the exact moment new scrutiny is building definitely has people talking. Now this is where it all starts to connect, and it ties right back to that pattern people keep talking about. Because with Scobie, it's not just a professional shift, it's deeper than that, at least according to multiple reports. There's been talk that the relationship between Scobie and Meghan cooled off significantly over time. The same person who once seemed closely aligned, constantly speaking in support, suddenly steps back right when things get complicated. And critics are quick to point out how familiar that feels. The narrative being pushed by some is simple but sharp. Someone is close, they serve a purpose, and then when that chapter ends, so does the relationship. Whether that's fully accurate or not, it's a claim that keeps coming up again and again, and the timing makes it even louder. Tom Bower stepping forward with new material at the exact moment Scobie steps away creates a striking contrast. One voice getting louder, the other going quiet. That shift alone has people watching closely to see which version of events shapes what comes next. Then came the latest controversy, and this one hit hard. Harry and Meghan's trip to Jordan sparked a wave of reaction because of the timing and the location. They traveled to the Middle East during a period of rising tension in the region, something that was already widely reported at the time. And the backlash wasn't small. It spread fast across media and online spaces. The biggest issue people pointed to was the security argument. Harry has spent years in legal battles insisting that he cannot safely travel to the UK without official state-level protection. That claim has been central to his position. So when he and Meghan traveled to a region seen as volatile during a tense period, it created a major perception gap. To many observers, the inconsistency was impossible to ignore, and it immediately became a talking point. The reaction wasn't quiet either. Media coverage ramped up, online discussions exploded, and the situation reportedly even stirred diplomatic tension. It quickly turned into another high-profile moment of scrutiny. And once again, people noticed something else. Meghan's visibility during the fallout appeared limited, while Harry faced most of the public attention directly. Tom Bower has described them as relentless and restless, always moving, always active, never slowing down. And this situation feels like a clear example of that energy, acting quickly, staying visible, even when the timing raises serious questions. Meanwhile, on the other side of everything, Prince William has stepped into one of the biggest diplomatic moments of his life so far, adding even more contrast to how these stories are unfolding. He's representing King Charles at the funeral of Pope Francis, and that alone carries huge weight. Just weeks before the Pope's passing, King Charles had visited him Lichno, a moment that now feels even more meaningful given everything that followed. But with the king undergoing ongoing treatment, it's Prince William stepping in for the funeral itself. And this isn't just any appearance. This is a global stage. World leaders, heads of state, massive international attention. And William is walking into that room calm, focused, and fully prepared to represent the royal family. It's a defining moment, and by all accounts, he's handling it exactly how people expect a future king to act. Steady, composed, and stepping up when it matters most. Now put that side by side with Harry's situation, and the contrast speaks for itself. Tom Bower's argument has always been that Harry is holding on to a royal identity even as that connection becomes more distant. And every time William steps forward, and he keeps doing it, that gap becomes even more obvious. What Harry left behind is coming into sharper focus with each passing moment. So here's where things stand right now in early 2026. Bower is doubling down, Revenge 2 is on the way, and the bigger picture is still unfolding in real time. If you've been following this story, drop your thoughts below, hit like and subscribe for more updates because this situation is far from over.